The 12th October 2019, we're here at the College Park Aviation Museum at the end of the East Coast Chapter Tuskegee Airmen monthly general meeting, and we were delighted to have in our presence Second Lieutenant United States Army Air Forces World War II veteran George Jacobs of New York, and he told us a fascinating story. Mr. Jacobs, give us your full name, when were you born, and where were you born?
Okay. My full name is George Jacobs. I was born in New York City in 1924, so that makes me 95 years young.
Outstanding. And where were you educated?
I was educated at the Pratt Institute with a degree in electrical engineering. I also have a degree in journalism and my master's degree from the University of Maryland.
And give us the name of your parents.
My parents were Benjamin and Henrietta Jacobs.
And what did your father do? What did your mother do?
My father was a civil engineer. My mother was an old-fashioned housekeeper.
Outstanding. And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
I have no brothers. I've had two sisters. One has just passed away.
Tell us about the lead up to World War II. I heard that you trained at age 16 in the civilian air pilot project.
Yes, my first interest came really through the Blitz of London. I was here, I was about 14 or 15 years old then, and I followed the news of what was happening in Europe at the time, and I became I noticed very much of the RAF, and I became a very strong believer at that young age that air power was the future.
Yes.
President Roosevelt established some organizations for young people. He had something called the National Youth Administration, which many of us were able to go to college with. He had the CCC, which a lot of young people were able to work for a year.
That's the Civilian Conservation Corps.
And then they had the Civil Aeronautics Patrol.
I see.
And that's where you went to school until you learned to fly. And that's exactly where I learned to fly.
How old were you?
It was in my 16th year.
Yes.
I started out at the beginning. By the middle of the time, like someone said here today had accomplished, I received my first license to fly just about my 16th birthday.
Yes.
Now, the interesting thing about that was in New York, at that time, you couldn't get a driver's license until you were 18.
Yes.
So my dad used to have to fly me to Floyd Bennett's Field.
Drive you to Fort Bend. Amazing.
And of course, I enjoyed buzzing him on the way home.
Outstanding. What was your understanding of what the Germans were doing to the folks in occupied Europe at that time? Were you aware of what they were doing?
It's interesting that you told me that was those exact words. Last year at this time, I was invited to a VIP reception at the National Museum of Air Force in Dayton, Ohio. It was the 75th anniversary of the Memphis Belle. They interviewed me, and that program will be on, by the way, Veterans Day. And they asked me that same question. I was very much aware of it, yes.
Mm-hmm. How did you get the news?
Pardon?
How did you get the news?
How I got the news?
Yes.
Well, through only one source, radio.
Radio.
And newsprint.
Yeah, but
I relied, at that time, news was straight, and it was honest, and it was news, not fabricated.
That's right. But you didn't know about the final solution, like the camps, or did you?
We knew it was, things were going unpleasant. We didn't know about the final solution. I didn't know really how bad it was until January 1945, when the Russians liberated Auschwitz.
Auschwitz, yes.
And then there was proof. Up until then, we were hearing about it, but here was real proof it existed, the first concentration camp. And one of the last missions I flew with the B-17, and it's interesting because most people think of the bombing missions.
Yes.
I flew 6 bombing missions. I got there in January of 45.
Yes.
But I flew 3 humanitarian missions, which to me today were far more important than any of the bombing missions.
Yes.
The first humanitarian mission was to drop food to the Dutch who were starving before the end of the war.
Yes.
The second was to fly back 9,000 Allied prisoners of war, air prisoners, from Germany. And the third one was to supply medical supplies to the Mauthausen concentration camp, which had been liberated. So I've
Yes.
seen the camp.
Yes, yes. What year did you join the Air Force?
I joined the Air Force in 1940, late 1942. I applied for the Aviation Cadets, but I was just short of having a 2-year college training. So they let me finish the 2 years, and I actually joined the Cadets in June of 43.
And so you, at that time, you were at Pratt. Were you at college at that time?
No, 43. I was just, 2 years of college. We just finished it.
Was that at Pratt? Pratt Institute?
Yeah, how did you know that?
I think you said that earlier.
Oh, okay. It's not a very known school.
I know. So once you started, where were you trained in aviation?
It's an 18-month course, Aviation Cadets. It started out in Miami Beach. Then we went to a college for about 6 months up in Maine. And then we went to a psychological examination, thorough examination, mental and physical. And that's where it really began. In Nashville, that's when it was decided whether you would fly or not.
Yes.
They chose me. And then I started my navigation training at Maxwell Field, which was the elite place.
Yes, Maxwell Field,
for
yeah.
the Air Corps at the time. And I got my navigation wings from Sullivan Field, Louisiana. And I flew radar training. And in January of 45, I joined the 8th Air Force.
Outstanding. And when did you first meet the first African American air cadets or fighter pilots or ground crew?
I met them, and it's kind of hysterical. You may know about it from your father or your grandfather. I was at Sullivan Field Navigation School, and one of the things we did toward the end was to fly simulated missions as we might encounter in wartime. So we had a flight arranged from Sullivan Field in Louisiana to senior moment.
I know.
To Seymour Airport in Indiana. We were told they were aviation cadets, and we were going up to speak them. It turned out that you may know that Seymour was the aviation cadets for Afro-Americans.
Yes.
We were segregated. I'm from New York. Color meant no difference to where I came from.
Yes.
Or from my family.
Yes.
I'm not bragging, but I'm a third-generation American in my family.
Yes. Your parents came from, your folks came from Eastern Europe, or?
No, my father was Sephardic Jews. My background is Spanish. It's Spain.
Yes, yes. Well, the Jewish community, as a matter of history, has always been favorable towards civil rights and relationships of African Americans. So I think that may have accounted for your open disposition, wouldn't you say?
Yes, very much so. So when we landed at Seymour, and we had, in my aircraft, we had 12 people. 4 of them were from the South. They absolutely refused to get off the airplane. They said, we're not going to stay. I had never seen discrimination like that before. These were from aviation cadets who were going to be pilots, navigators soon. They stayed in town, wouldn't stay overnight because it was an Afro-American organization.
Yeah.
But that was my first encounter with it, and we had a nice food was good, the accommodations were great, friendships were great. My second meeting was, as I mentioned here before, over Dresden, Germany on April 17th, 1945 at 22,000 feet. We were attacked by 3 Me-262s. That was the German jets.
Yeah,
came out at the very end of the war.
Those are the first German.
Absolutely no defense against them. They stood behind us, far enough away that we couldn't reach them, but they had cannon that could reach us. 2 of the jets came around and took down our both wingmen. The 3rd jet was starting to come down. The pilot was taking very controlled but massive evasive action. And off to the side came a P-51. We think the P-51 caused the jet to pre-fire. The jet had one vulnerability. If they slowed down, the P-51s would get them, but they could outrun a P-51. I think he saw the P-51 coming. He shot soon. His 88 meter cannon shot was off to our left wing, and we survived. So we give half credit, at least, to an unknown. It was a red tail.
Red tail.
To an unknown
Tuskegee Airmen.
The difficulty was that we were with the 8th Air Force, and the Tuskegee Airmen protected the 15th.
Yeah.
But I later learned from your colleagues who had your father's generation, who had their meetings at Andrew Air Base, that many of them were so much wanting to get up and help the bombers that even when they were on ground strafing missions, if they saw trouble, they would go up. And they worked it out. It was interesting because something was said today about it. They worked it out that it was a Tuskegee Airman who was there. He wasn't supposed to be there, but he was there. And I wanted to thank him. And they told me he had died. He was the last Tuskegee Airman to die during the war. And I think he was the gentleman that lady was referring to.
Yes.
Things crossed.
Well, I just want to let you know we're happy to have you as part of our chapter. We were so excited that you came. We're very proud of you, and I'm hoping that you can sit with us for the photograph today. And I'd like to take a picture with you. And we want to thank you for your service, for democracy and human freedom, and for your outstanding service to the country afterwards in diplomacy, at the State Department, and everything else you did. But being here today with you was a blessing, and we're also very happy that you made it.
It's a mutual blessing, I assure you. You can tell from my voice and my face. It's truly a blessing. I have to get out by 3, but this is more important. I'll stay here to take the picture.
Thank you so very much. God bless you, Mr. Jacobs. God bless you. God bless you. Bye-bye.